Hello there.
Oh, here we are. Hey, how are you?
Hey, good, are you?
All right. So, couple things. So, first of all, how you doing, Riley?
I'm God damn it. Yeah, my chat is very not happy with me right now. I should probably respond more serious. But at a certain point, you just like, I don't know, like I have a natural response where it's like once something just gets like so weighing down on me mentally that I just start laughing. So I hope that people don't take that to mean that I'm not understanding the severity of the situation. I'm just very yeah. So hey, before we go on, can you both like introduce yourselves? Because I'm not sure if my community is familiar with either of you.
Sure. I'm Avi Bitterman. I'm a medical doctor in New York, working at Mount Sinai.
Cool.
I engage. Oh, sure. Sorry.
No, I mean, if you're
Isaac.
gonna just take a long pause and just continue.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm sorry.
What are you can explain like some of your credentials, like what have you studied, what degrees you have, what background you have?
Sure. So I went to so I studied biology at Queens College, and I went to medical school at Jefferson Medical College. And I am currently working in a research setting at Mount Sinai, performing both investigator-initiated and sponsor-initiated research.
Right.
I actively engage in debate on all different sorts of subjects, and yeah, that's basically me.
Nice.
Oh, you have Jose Caballero. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I remember.
Or Josie. Trans.
Oh, her. Okay. There's been a change. All right. Well, my bad for fucking that one up right away. Sorry, Josie. Yeah. So my channel. Well, I'm used to introducing myself by my channel. I mean, my name's Isaac, but I have a channel. Ask Yourself. Some of your viewers probably know me from bitch slapping sophists like Bosch. But other than that, I'm not. I don't know. I'm a student. I do CS, philosophy, stuff like that.
Joe. Yeah.
Yeah. Are our mics both loud and clear? Are we coming through nicely?
Yeah, I just turned you up a little bit. Yeah, you should be good now.
Okay. Yeah, I've been told I'm quiet lately, and I try to fix it. I try screaming at people.
Someone's saying, "OMG, fuck, ask yourself." What did you do?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's probably just some idiot. Ask them what I'm wrong about. Ask for some specific proposition, and they'll probably just ramble off into Narnia.
Okay,
but if they have a criticism, I'm happy to hear it. Though.
Reza Surtra, then you can give the reason why. Been watching Ask Yourself a while. Good lord. Okay. Yeah, no, thank you both for coming on. I don't know. So how much have you both been following this?
Well, Avi just had me sit through the entire thing. I didn't watch your full conversation with your audience after the fact.
It's probably fine.
But yeah, that was a pretty brutal debate.
Yeah,
I will say though, I like that you were willing to like defend your position, not just submit to your community as if they were some kind of like mob chasing you. And I'm sure you're tight with that mod, but I was cringing out pretty hard when that mod was like psychologizing you. Like the only reason you'd possibly be arguing with your audience is like basically you're like worked up and angry. And when you had said explicitly like, no, you care about the topic and you're willing to sit there and actually debate it because it's important, it's like, don't psychologize her. She wants to argue it, let her argue it. So yeah, I think that was all impressive. It's good to stand by your guns and not take shit from people and just defend your views.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
I want to reiterate that actually. Yeah, I am actually very impressed. And we'll get into the debate specifics and the particulars because I think that's really what the conversation should focus on.
Sure.
But before we do that, I do want to say that I actually am really proud of you for the way you handled yourself and your performance overall.
Thank you.
I am glad that and I'll just specify the reason why I'm proud of you is because you did not give off of the idea that you're an ideologue, that you actually, your beliefs are actually founded in, at least even if you may be right or wrong, they're founded in reason, and you will not back down if you think just because you to the pressure of either a chat or an audience or pressure from your own mods As long as you are not convinced, you will stay not convinced. And so I applaud you for that.
Yeah, thank you. No, I mean, like, I said this. Well, I mean, like, I don't know. Essentially my position right now, because regardless of whether or not my chat agrees with me right now, what I care about the most, I mean, like, I care about like having opinions that are, I don't know, like, I'm not sure if I want to say like true, but I mean, like, what I do care about the most is my community, regardless of whether or not they believe that. And what I care about the most, insofar as my communities, I want to make sure that because I'm a political figure and because what I do is I give political opinions and arguments, I want to make sure that the people who rely on my arguments can know to as high a degree of certainty as they can, that they can rely on those and they will get them through most, if not all, situations. Like, even if they don't agree with me right now, that is my goal, right? I care about being right, not just for the sake of it, but because I want people who follow me to know that they can rely on these to get them through whatever they deal with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You want your community. You said it better than I could. You want your community to have arguments that hold water, and if they don't hold water, then you want your community to ditch those arguments because it will cause more harm in the long term if they are using arguments that actually will get dunked on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, essentially.
Okay.
And so no, I appreciate that. And so, all right, so let me ask you all a couple. So you both watched the video, right?
Yeah,
I watched the majority of it.
Okay, or yeah, the majority. I'll only ask about things that happened when I was talking to Demon Mama. Just so I don't.
All of that.
Yeah. So there were a couple things I was wondering about, and then we can explore like anything that you all want to in general. But like there's a couple things that
we almost have some. Sorry to cut you off. I think we almost have some like bullet points that might be worth like these things are kind of like forefront, like must be dealt with, and then maybe like go into whatever else of interest after that, if that works for you.
Sure. I'm playing a game right now. I mean, like if you want me to, I can pull out Notepad. But I mean, like yeah, like the points that are like most important to me, because like there are some things like I feel pretty confident in a lot of the things I said. Or at least like that's my, but like, or at least there are a lot of the parts of the conversation. That doesn't mean that we don't have to talk about them. That doesn't mean that if you take issue with them, that we don't have to talk about them. But like there are certain things that happen during the conversation that I just need another opinion on because they were so, blindsided to me. Like there are arguments I'd never heard before, and I thought that they were bad, but I couldn't say anything necessarily about them in the moment. So the first is the idea. So Demon Mama, so basically when we're talking about like the definition of like what is gender, right? So Demon Mama, like this whole thing started with Demon Mama saying that what it means to be a gender is just to identify as a gender. Avi, you and I have talked about this before. There is a logical regress there. But first, can you just explain, actually, this is probably the best place to start. Could you both just explain like what a logical regress is?
You know, ironically, this was actually the first go-to thing that we really wanted to talk about.
Well, hey, there you go.
Yeah, so I guess we would have ended up at the same spot anyway. Well, I mean, I think that if we want to talk about the problem with that definition that was given, it's like if you say being a woman is just defined as identifying as a woman, you can kind of by creating like a substitution instance for the word woman, just realize there's an infinite regress that never terminates in any clear meaning.
Yeah.
So when you say, you know, what it means to be a woman is to identify as a woman, well, a woman is someone who identifies as a woman. So you're saying what it means to be a woman is to identify as someone who identifies as someone who identifies as someone who right, and it just doesn't terminate.
Yeah.
So there's no clear meaning. It's literally incoherent.
Yeah, I tried explaining this concept. I mean, I guess I tried doing it like mathematically or formulaically, but I tried explaining this concept to chat. I think that the reason why, because there are a lot of people who I felt like I explained this to, and maybe you did, I don't know, maybe you disagree with me and thought that I didn't explain it clear enough. I thought I explained it pretty clearly. But I feel like also some people have donated. Someone earlier donated $5. Someone just donated $10. Thank you. Got banned from Discord. Oh, wait, Gappy? Wait, why were you banned? Gappy was banned? All right, hold on. Gappy, you can email me and I'll unban. I do not know. Like, I know you. I don't feel like you should have been banned. Anyway, hold on. Some people are messaging me. Goddamn. So many things are happening all at once. Like, I have like 5 messages. All right, so anyway, what I was wondering, all right, now I got my train of thought back. What I was wondering is if you could explain to people, because I think that people looked at that and they're like, oh, that's just a mathematical equation. That doesn't mean anything. Like, that's just math. It doesn't apply here. So, like, what's the problem with a logical regress? Like, practically speaking, like, if you tried using that kind of an argument, what problems do you get into?
Well, we should be a little careful with our wording. I don't think we're talking about an argument, because an argument is a set of premises and a conclusion.
Okay.
So just with the math thing, although I don't think we should get sidetracked on this, because I think obviously the core of what you're saying made sense there. There is a regress problem with that definition. I think the math way of describing it was a little misleading, and the reason is because an expression like x equals y plus x, it's not like incoherent what's being said there. I mean, we can deduce that y has to be 0, but in the and you're kind of doing a substitution instance on x there, right? And it's like that's fine, but the disanalogy is that when you do the substitution instances with the word and the regressive definition, the initial statement actually doesn't have any clear meaning, right? In the case of the mathematical statement, it does. So I would actually argue that that's not the best way to describe it. But the kind of pattern you were getting at, like, you obviously get the idea, right? Which is just like, it's to do with this kind of substitution instance, like expanding something out forever with no like termination point. Like, that's kind of getting into the right territory. I could explain exactly what's wrong if we want to go on, but like, I guess in quick kind of like lay terms that everyone should follow, it's not clear what's being said, right? We don't know what you're saying. If you're saying, you know, a woman is someone who identifies as someone who identifies as someone who identifies as someone who, like, do you think that there's clear meaning there? Because it's like, if the sentence never terminates, it doesn't actually seem like it's a proposition. It doesn't seem like we're actually saying what it means to be a woman. It seems like we're just regressing off into nowhere. So I think that the problem is going to be that you're not actually saying anything that has meaning.
Okay, hold on. Avi, ask yourself, where'd you go? Yeah, okay. Wait, hold on. Ask yourself, you left the group? Wait, why'd you leave the group? Oh my god. Okay. I don't know why that happened. Rip Chef finished eating. Okay. Well, I have no idea why, but apparently... Hold on. Ask yourself, left the server? Well, left the group. Hold on. Hey, you both. Nah, he left the server? Was he that, like, upset that I just talked to Destiny? Like, Destiny wanted to come in and explain, like, something really quickly. And I was like, okay, yeah, say what you want. And then Ash yourself was like, no, I want to interrupt. And I was like, no, Destiny's coming here for a second. He's going to explain something, and then he's going to leave, and we're going to pick up our conversation. And then he left over that. Why? Was it the fact that I muted him? What? I mean, like, okay, that's a weird take, I guess. Trying to get off. Okay. I don't. All right. Wait, ask yourself left. Apparently, you all know as much as I do at this point. Well, that's weird. Ask yourself and Destiny have a history, apparently. How the fuck am I supposed to know that? And also, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? Like, wait, am I, like, responsible for the fact that Destiny and him have bad history? Like, ask yourself as a salty point. Can't wait for that call-out vid. What? I don't even understand. Like, I especially don't understand what I did now. Like, I didn't understand before. And now I doubly don't understand. Yeah, of course it's not your... Well, yeah. I mean, like, I mean, not gonna lie, we agreed on. Well, I mean, I thought. I mean, he just joined. Did. I don't know. That's super weird. Like, I don't think that was. RGR, I feel like Twitch is just middle school. I mean, like, seriously. Like, Destiny came in and was going to explain a concept to me because we had talked earlier, and he said he was going to take 2 seconds, and he took like maybe a minute, maybe a minute and a half. Ask Yourself is so fucking awful. He does debates with Destiny, Vosh, Vanderhall, and then all of them. He's so fucking insufferable and pedantic, and he always wants to act like he's not being, and then ends up morally condemning the people he's talked to, even though they were being pretty reasonable. Wait, really? Like, what? What? I mean, I don't know the context. I can't sit here and say that I know the context. If people have, like, a weird history with Destiny, that's, like, understandable, because that seemed like, yeah, a lot of people have, like, spicy... Oh, hey, Avi.
Yeah, hey, what's up?
Hey.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, I think just the issue is, so Isaac just basically, so his whole take is, he took the time out to, review the debate. We had an agreed upon time to come on, and then, he would just get muted on the agreed upon time where he just agreed. So anyway, I mean, I'm not yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't think that there was any I didn't think that was a I didn't mean that as a particularly insulting action. Like, Destiny just messaged me and was like, hey, I just want to come in and explain something for a few seconds. And I was like, oh, sure, yeah, that sounds fine. And I was like, hey, the conversation was going. I was like, all right, cool. I just want to put it on hold because Destiny wants to explain something. Shouldn't take long. And then it took a minute. And I Ask Yourself wanted to interrupt and be like, well, hold on, we can solve this right here. And I was like, well, wait, hold on. Just Destiny wanted to say something. I just wanted to bring him in to be able to say that thing. So let him say that thing. And Ask Yourself was like, no, well, hold on. We can handle it right here. And I was like, wait, no, just let him say what he wants to, and then he's going to leave. Right. That's literally.
Yeah, no, I understand. I don't know how much of this is the backstory you're familiar with. So Destiny and Ask Yourself have a whole. Yeah. So Destiny. So okay. So just Destiny and Ask Yourself have a whole backstory to them, and it's probably not the prettiest backstory. I mean, they're not on terrible terms now, but it's yeah. I mean, it's your platform. You can do whatever you want. It's just I guess if I had to just explain the issue, it's just okay, it was that was the agreed upon time that he would come on. He did a lot of prep work and reviewing it, and agreeing to come on and everything. And I mean, and that was and to have Destiny come in and just and not be able to converse with him at the agreed upon time. I guess that's the sign of shit, but whatever. Anyway, so that's, I mean, it's unfortunate because I do value Ask Yourself, and he is a very he's been a very valuable resource to me in philosophy and logic.
Yeah, obviously I didn't mean anything against him personally. I didn't think that what I did was supposed to be particularly insulting.
Yeah, no, I understand. I get that. I know you didn't.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I know he takes it that way. He'll take getting muted. Yeah. No, he'll take getting muted like that. In that kind of context that way. But that's fine. And not that I understand it.
Sure.
And I know you didn't have bad intentions. I know. Okay, so I can I guess continue that conversation then.
Yeah. So I mean, the question was Demon Mama. So basically the conversation, we're talking about what it means to be a woman, what is gender. Demon Mama gives definition of gender. Gender means to identify, to be a woman is to identify as a woman. I'm like, no, infinite regress. Maybe I could have explained that better, although I think I did I tried my best to explain the problems with this later on, so maybe that'll change Destiny's criticism. But I mean so I'm trying to think oh, and Demon Mama responded by saying that no, that doesn't matter. It doesn't apply here because what it means to be a woman is a tautology.
Okay, so
yeah, and I want to explore this.
Yeah.
Like, what is a tautology, and did she use it correctly?
Sure. Yeah, so no, spoiler alert, she did not use tautology correctly. So it's wrong on two accounts. If you say what it means to be a woman is to identify as a woman, that's actually not a tautology. That's just a regressive definition. So we have to go into what a tautology means. Before we do that, I just want to say, like, in response to things, like sometimes like using non-standard terminology is okay to laymen as long as you're clear about what they mean, because at some point in certain conversations they're going to delve into other realms, and it's important to be, and I'm guilty of this all the time, but it is important to be sensitive that people don't understand these terminologies, and that's fine. Sometimes it gets secondhand to use non-conventional terminology, but I think it's okay as long as you're good about clarifying what you mean to the layman if you're talking to a layman audience. And then sometimes the points that need to be made really are just sort of abstract, but that really is the defeater to a given position. And you want to try to make that as understandable to them as possible, but there are that gets harder and harder as a result of if the actual defeater is limited to more esoteric fields, which in this case it might be a little bit, but yeah, that's fine. Anyway, well, I mean, so what a tautology? Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted. So I mean, like, a lot of people don't know. Please just check French General.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm 1 second. People are telling me I have a million people saying a million things to me right now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm losing all my friends over this. Okay. Yeah, no, I was basically told, good, you're trying to prove that your arguments were logically consistent because that's the main concern. Okay, listen. No. God, I need to... Do people actually unironically think, like right now, the thing that bothers me about this whole... I'm sorry, I just need to take a sidestep for this.
Sure.
Because there's like 3 layers to this, right? First, people say, oh, right. So, like, the debate happened. During the debate, people were telling me I was wrong. My chat was pushing against me. People were fighting back against me. And all through that time, people were impugning me personally. People were, I was being demeaned. I was being talked to by Demon Mama. And then my chat was calling me transmet, true scum. They were saying that I was wrong without actually giving any reason. They were trying to be... They were constantly, even without provocation, like, yelling at me. Or I guess the equivalent of yelling over Discord chat. And after all of that, then after that conversation, like, even after I go through all the effort to talk to people and to explain myself and to try and, like, actually have a conversation with my chat, then people want to say that I acted unreasonably, and people want to say that I caused some harm. People want to say that I'm driving people away. RGR really needs to take a step back and look in the mirror. Your friends are leaving, the server is falling apart. Yeah, but why? Like, people are saying that I'm causing a harm. Like, all right, L, if you want to get in here and be like, good, you're just trying to prove that your arguments were logically consistent, that's definitely the main concern. That's not just the main concern, all right? Or I shouldn't say that's not just, that's not the main concern. Like, yeah, that's certainly a part of it. But literally, none of you, I feel like, are actually listening to me. None of you are. None of you. All of you are acting like I did some crazy, terrible thing in the stream in some way or another. So, and I think that there is something big missed in this definition. Which in this definition? I mean, like, 1 second. I'm talking to Avi right now. But I mean, like...
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna, like, guys, if you're, look, if you're gonna say that Riley, that she's doing something wrong, or you disagree, like, at least have a reason. Like, have something like, what do you think Riley's wrong about? Like, what's specific? Is there, like, a specific proposition she thinks she's wrong about? Do you think that she's violating some hypothetical norm? Or that just means, like, some end goal that she wants? Anyway,
I mean, like right now it's particularly the fact that I feel like people are not actually listening to me and describing things or events or like some things to me that I definitely didn't do. We can definitely define gender recursively.
Yeah,
Recursively?
the thing is that, I mean, okay, so gender can be defined recursively as long as the recursive has a termination point. Really, as long as it provides meaning. If the recursive definition has no endpoint, if it's just a vicious regress, then, I mean, I guess you can define it that way, but I don't, if you think that provides meaning to the definition, if you think that's coherent, explain what it means.
Define.
If you think vicious regresses, so a vicious regress, yeah, I mean, really, a vicious regress is just a regress that doesn't provide meaning, and usually it's in virtue of the recursiveness of the definition not ending. So being an infinite regress.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Each step in the substitution process just keeps getting pushed back one step further.
Right, but I mean, like, people don't understand. Like, a lot of people in the chat just don't seem to understand that concept. Like, this seems to be like it's just going over people's heads. It's just not computing. Well, first, like,
it absolutely. So you're saying it doesn't need to lead to regress. So if you say that a woman is someone who identifies as a woman, that absolutely leads to a regress. When you have when you take the actual definition and you put it into when you take the word you're trying to define, put it into the definition in such a way that the recursive nature of it doesn't actually terminate, that is absolutely a vicious regress. I don't see any way out of the regress. In fact, this was coded earlier with the same terms, and it absolutely. I mean, you can you could bring him in.
Okay, yeah, I'll bring in this person. Okay, brought in.
Or her. I don't know the pronouns.
Pronouns are he, him.
He, him. Okay.
What's up? What do you got?
He, him.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But okay, so 1 second. Let me mute the stream version over here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the reason I say that it's not necessarily a regress is because the definition of gender is not fixed, but rather evolves in time as the group expands.
Yeah, but that's so sure. I mean, look, I actually okay. A couple things there. So I don't see how that gets out of a regress. I mean, if you're saying what is
right. So yeah. What? So I would say so. What is a woman? Well, a woman is that common trait by which all of the people who identify as a woman share.
Oh, wait a minute.
So what a woman is defined by the collection of people who identify as women.
Okay, so notice, I'll point out one thing. So notice that you've actually changed the definition there. So you're saying a woman is, if you're going to say a woman is defined as some sort of property that is shared by people who identify as women.
Yes.
So that's
not some property, but rather inclusion in the set. I suppose set is actually, it's more of a type theoretic notion, I think, would be better.
But notice how you've changed the definition that we're talking about.
So just to clarify then, what is the definition?
So just the definition, so just to be clear, the definition that we're talking about is the following. A woman is someone who identifies as a woman.
Yes, okay.
It's not, notice what we're not talking about is a woman is a property or some sort of set theoretic or some sort of shared anything of people who identify as a woman. That's not the definition we're talking about.
Right, then. So
do you agree that the definition that I've provided just now, a woman is someone who identifies as a woman, do you agree that that's a regressive definition?
No, because a set, if we consider the collection of humans as a finite set of things, then we can proceed to say, well, this subset is then comprised and defined by the elements within it. Because that is how you define it.
So unpack that.
So a set is defined in terms of its elements. Yes?
I understand that.
So given that context, then the question is based on the membership criterion. And so if they identify as a woman,
Mm-hmm.
they put themselves in that set. And so that set
Mm-hmm.
expands based on, because I think the key point is that there is a pre-existing idea of, say, what a woman is. Like, it's nebulous and
But I don't see
generally
how this is getting
societally
out of the
constructed.
regress, though. Like, I understand what you're saying. I just don't see how it gets out of the substitutional regress. Like,
Yeah, because
go ahead.
eventually we go back down, because as gender evolves through times, the set changes. Yes.
I
So,
still
like,
don't see how it gets out of the substitutional regress.
Like,
I don't
basically-
see how what's terminating. What's the termination?
the termination point is when you roll it back far enough that there are no, I suppose, pre-human ancestors who are cognizant and conscious enough to define themselves as women.
Wait, but those are just facts about temporal history, but that doesn't
Yes,
address
exactly,
the termination
so-
but that doesn't address the termination with respect to the definition.
Right,
what-
because I'm taking this from a materialist point of view.
That's totally. Wait, hold on. So do you think? Wait. What is the term? So with respect to the definition itself, not with respect to. So the question I'm not asking you is.
Well, you're trying to abstract the definition.
Let me just.
Okay, I'm
finish.
sorry. I apologize.
No worries. The question I'm not asking you is at what point in history were people not able to identify as a woman? That's not the question that's being asked. The question that is being asked is if you have a substitutional recursivity to this definition, what is the terminator in the definition? Now, that's tangential to any historical point. It's just a function. You can take the substitutional. It's a process. It's a substitution process.
Right, but that's only if you divorce the concept of gender from the social context in which it exists. The social context in which it exists is history. So you can't simply divorce the definition outside of history, but rather...
I'm not seeing what the terminator is. So
the terminator then would be, you could regress it as far back as the first person to identify in some kind of a proto-womanhood, although likely I think person would be
This isn't a temporal regress problem. It's not a temporal issue. It's the regress. By regress, I think I see the confusion. By regress, I'm not talking about a temporal regress.
No, I understand what you're talking about. You're talking about a logical regress in terms of computer science, but the problem is you're trying to divorce. The problem is that gender is socially constructed. It exists within a historical context. So we can't divorce the definition of gender from the social context in which it exists.
And that's fine, but then the obvious problem here is that what we're looking to do is we're looking to form a definition that captures that, but it also does not have a logical infinite regress. So what we need to do is what we want to do is have a logical regress breaker. We don't want to have a definition that is not logically incoherent, that doesn't provide meaning. Now, just to be really clear about what I want, what I want is a logical, in computer science and logic and how these things are defined, I want a regress breaker. I want something to break the recursivity of the definition.
Right, but I believe what they're saying is that the thing that breaks it is the first person in the group. Like if they're defining it.
But then that's changing the definition. Notice how if you want to, you can do that, but that's changing the right. But notice how the definition is no longer a woman is someone who identifies as a woman. It's a woman is someone who identifies as a woman, except at the instance when you have a individual that cannot identify, or except when you have the first woman. So that's adding a breaker. But notice how that's not the same. Notice how that's fine. You could do that. That you can get out of the incoherence. There may be reductios on a definition like that. There probably are. However, the point here is to notice that you've actually just changed the definition.
Well, I don't think so in this sense, because if we define it as the group of people who identify as women,
Mhm.
then the empty set would be the group. So it's perfectly well defined. It's just that
No,
before
it's
people could identify as women, there were no one in that set.
no,
It's the empty set.
it's no, you're not. And look, if you're talking about if you're going to introduce a group as a breaker, as some sort of, you keep repeating this process until you get to a certain individual, or until you get to a certain you do this recursivity X amount of times until you stop doing it. If you add that into the definition, that's fine in terms of being in terms of ending the recursivity.
No,
But what you're
I think the issue is you're denying that the empty set is a set, and it
Wait,
absolutely
what? No,
is
it
a
has
set.
to. I just don't know what the set. No. That's it. The problem is far worse than that. The problem is that I'm not clear on what the set even is, because the set is recursive. Like how you're defining the set is recursive. So it's not even clear that there's meaning to the set that you're talking about. Because I could do the same thing when you say group of people who identify as women. I could say it's a group of people who identify as a group of people who identify as a group of people who identify. That itself is recursive. You're not giving me any meaning about what the set is.
Well, I mean,
what is the set?
I'm gonna, because I think I'm following the argument. I'm just trying to explain it, because I don't like, essentially the way I'm understanding the argument right now is insofar as like the current value, whatever you're looking at. Again, like, I'm not gonna say you're an act like I know all, like, you can tell me if I'm using bad terminology. Essentially the current value bases itself in some way off of the previous value. And like, I don't know, that at least conceptually makes sense in my head, like your idea of a woman is going to be based probably in some way off of other people who you have seen who also are termed by society or by your understanding to be women, right? So you base it off of them, they base it off of someone else. Like,
Exactly.
it makes
Yes.
Yeah, but I agree with that, and that's totally fine. I agree with that, but that doesn't change the fact that that definition, quote, a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman, is incoherent. Like, nothing, it doesn't interact with the problem. Like, we it's not something anyone who recognizes.
So how so? Could
yeah, sure.
could you elaborate how this fails?
Yeah.
How
Well,
this
I mean, like,
definition fails? Could
so-
you provide
Yeah.
counter examples?
I mean, like,
Sure. No, well,
or sorry, if you want to explain, I think I
sure.
understand, is essentially like, if you're saying that's what the definition is, then it's not just a woman is someone who identifies as a woman. It's like the total, like the complete formula is a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman except for the first woman. Like, that's the complete string.
Or
of
any
code.
other thing. Like, as long as you
No,
change that in any way, if you're changing it in any way, or if you're baking something into to woman in that definition that somehow adds something
Right.
that meaningful other than just the same word woman when you're trying to define it, really what you're just doing is you're expanding the definition to add other things.
Right.
And
So
that could break the recursivity, but you notice that we're not even talking about the same definition we agreed to talk about in the first place then.
I think it is in the following sense. It's while the notion has changed, I think if you sort of roll back far enough to some sort of pre-human hominid, then you would end up with gender largely being the sort of binary. And then, as people have become more intelligent and their consciousnesses have grown, cultural ideas and societies become more complex, the notion has expanded well beyond that.
Which is why it's not the same definition.
No, so all you would have to say is that, well, the first woman could have just identified as a woman based on having female sex characteristics, and that's a perfectly valid starting place.
Which is definitely not the same definition.
No, it absolutely is. That person
Wait,
identified
what?
as a woman.
No, I mean, like,
Wait.
so Avi, I think I see the argument essentially is that, like, so my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to follow. So essentially you take like the first woman, like the number one, the initial woman, right?
Which is what is a woman? What is the initial woman?
Right. Well, the thing is that person may not even necessarily think of themselves. Well, I mean, like, I guess that, like, they probably don't think. All right, let's take a first human. All right, let's take human human number 0.
Well,
All right?
I would say we'd have to roll back, just given my elementary knowledge of biology. I don't know a ton of it, but I would say that we would probably need to roll back into an earlier hominid than humans.
Well, right. And I think
But-
that's fine. I mean, like right now, I'm just thinking in terms of like, all right, so we have like human 0. Let's say let's construct arbitrarily human 0. Okay.
Mhm.
And let's say with human 0, this person does not think of themselves as having a gender. All right, this person is from such a point in history where they don't have a concept of understanding gender. Like it is like it. I don't know. It's such a point in history where the thought doesn't even cross their mind. All right, they're focusing on like more survival based instincts or what have you. And let's say that this person is AFAB. They have the qualities that I don't know, in their totality, we might ascribe to be like biologically female, putting aside what that word means, but like just for shorthand in this discussion, let's just say, uterus can reproduce children, all that good stuff. Breast, yeah. And even though this person doesn't necessarily identify as a woman, there may be someone who comes after who, because evolution, has slightly higher order focuses in consciousness, and is able to now start understanding that, hey, the way that this person acts can in some way be aggregated. Like there's a lot of ways that they act that happen to form like themes in terms of how society should treat them, right? And so this
Are all these
person,
things part of your definition of what a woman is?
well, I mean, like,
Well,
I'm trying to capture it.
actually,
Wait, can I get a yes or no about? Wait, hold on. Can I?
Well, I
get
mean,
a-
like,
well,
this
what's the
is-
answer?
Well, I mean, like,
the answer for me, I suppose I would say that the answer is yes and no in the following sense.
I mean,
Is
like,
it
can I
part
just
of the
like complete the?
definition? Yes, in the sense that it is existent in the assumed context of the discussion of gender. Is it part of the strict definition of gender in and of itself as put forward? No.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if it's not part of the definition, I don't see how the definition escapes the recursivity, and I don't see how it's coherent.
I mean,
Well,
it
it's
is-
simple because whenever we define anything, we always define it in terms of some given context.
Wait, that doesn't change. Okay, yes, but that doesn't have to be an infinite regress, though. Like there are
No,
definitions that
and-
fill
right,
that
and-
criteria
yeah.
that are not infinite
Exactly.
regressive, and there are definitions that are infinite regressive. This definition, the
Sure,
problem
this one is
is
not
infinite
infinitely
regressive.
regressive.
Oh, it absolutely is.
We've already provided you the starting point. I don't
No.
understand how it's infinitely
No, because
regressive.
the problem is if you introduce a termination breaker, you've changed the definition.
Well-
You're not just saying a woman is someone who identifies as a woman. You're saying
No, I'm
a
saying.
woman is someone who identifies as a woman, and also in this definition, you.
Well,
Can I
see
split the
that
baby?
sometimes until you
Hold
terminate.
on. Can I just like split the baby on this one really quick? Because I think that
sure.
like there is I think it's true. I think that both of these statements could be true. I think it can be true that essentially, and again, like I'm not sold on, like I'm just exploring this idea as you're conveying it. I think it can be true that just saying in and of itself, a woman is someone who identifies as a woman is an infinite regress. I think that's true. I think it's also, I think that at least insofar as I've explored this so far, like the idea that like, oh, well, if you introduce a starting point of the first woman, then basically everyone else who comes after who identifies with that group or self-identifies is basing them off of like some other prior form of womanhood, and it changes over time. Like that, at least insofar as I'm thinking about it so far, that seems to work.
So we could explore if that works or not, but I'll point out a couple of things. The first thing is that's not the same definition. Like it's just not equivalent.
Well, it's not. Yeah, no, I'm not saying that it's the same.
We can
So
agree
let
that.
me give me one moment. I'm going to try and lay this out set theoretically. I just need a moment to think.
Okay.
Well, while you're thinking about doing that, I just wanted to be clear about why. I mean, so we agree that it's not the same definition. Okay, so we're talking about a different definition now. The issue you're gonna.
I do not concede.
Well, all right. So you don't concede on that. Riley agrees. You don't. Okay, that's fine. So Riley, So right now, with the other thing you provided, when you say first woman, you'll notice that you're doing something similar here. You're introducing the word woman into the word first. Like if a woman who is someone who identifies as a woman after the first woman, you can do the same substitution problem with that, and you'll get the same infinite. I'm pretty sure you'll get the same infinite regress.
Well, I think the point is that very primitively, the definition that we have now of women evolves out of broadly the sexes, although that doesn't get into, like, sex is obviously non-binary. There's, I think, 6 viable karyotypes, but that's largely irrelevant. The point being that the sex characteristics would have served as the primary basis primordially.
Okay, so if you're gonna
expanded socially.
Okay, so that's
more complex.
So that's fine. You can. There are some coherent constructions of what a woman is that can relate to characteristics that are associated with sex. That's fine. Notice how that's a very different definition than saying a woman is someone who identifies as a woman.
Oh, you want me to throw out some category theory? I'm reading the chat.
No, I don't. The issue is not here's the problem. The issue is not like set theoretical category theory. The issue is going to be the same thing over and over again. No matter how you frame this, no matter how you put it into set theory or category theory, it doesn't matter, because as long as you're going to give a recursive definition that doesn't have a terminator, you're going to run into the same problem.
I feel like we've
provided
the terminator several times.
Well, no, because the problem is every terminator. Sure. The problem is every terminator you've introduced has changed the definition, or is at least in some way slipped that into the definition.
Okay,
so it's not just about.
Let me try and explain this way then. So we say the set of women. A member of the set of women is someone who identifies as being a woman.
Okay, and that's an infinite regress.
I muted myself, but thank you, Fat Lip Joe. I appreciate it.
But there's a context.
Also, I don't know why. Sorry, I don't know why I didn't just mute myself earlier for the other donations, but yeah, I appreciate it.
Social, general social historic context.
Is that part of the definition
right now, though? Wait, hold on.
The context
everyone
in which you're working
needs
is part
to, like,
of every
chill.
definition you use.
Okay, so
because
if that's
this is actually a good, this is a productive conversation.
Like
a lot of this may not be practically used in everyday parlance, but like this is a really important conversation. This is a really important conversation.
The context is included inherently, but I said that exactly the opposite way I meant to. I meant to say the context is included inherently in any axiomatic formulation of any mathematics.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on there. Here's the issue.
There's always some irreducibles that exist, and while they can vary based on what they are, there's always a context in which you're working. Like if I were to define like a mathematical group, well, generally speaking, there is a context that I'm working with. If I say X is a set, well, there is a context for what it means to be a set. There is an.
No, I understand that. I'm just not understanding how that's getting out of the recursivity, and without changing the definition.
Because when there's no one who is cognizant enough.
Look, we can check this with coding. Like this has been coded out. Like I can play you the code. Like this has been done in there's people who have programmed logic bots. They've done the work has been done here.
Well,
like
I'm familiar.
Here, let me add maybe.
I'm actually interested in AGDA and stuff like that. Actually, it's kind of a very neat.
Can I ask a question really quick, just to like clarify? Sure. I think I might be able to mediate this. So like Avi, you said that like if we're incorporating this history. This kind of aspect of history, which I mean, like it sounds reasonably it at least makes sense in my head.
It's very reasonable to incorporate history and put it
I mean, like, hold on, before both of you start talking, I just need to ask this question. So Avi, if you're saying that like incorporating this changes the definition, so how does it change the definition? Like, what would you write out as far as the code?
Sure. So if we want to say, so notice how the definition, a woman is someone who identifies as a woman, that clearly leads to an infinite regress. Because for every like term, every like word, assuming no equivocation, that we're not using two words to mean something different, which we shouldn't be doing if we're trying to define it, there's a clear substitution effect that leads to an infinite regress. Now, there are ways to deal with that. You can deal with recursivity by introducing terminators. That's fine. The problem is the definition. A woman is someone who identifies as a woman does not have a terminator. There is no logical terminator there. You can introduce one, but that's not the same definition. It's just very, very straightforwardly not equivalent. Now, I'm not trying to say it's not unreasonable to add other things into the definition, such as maybe characteristics, maybe social interactions with individuals. That's all fine, but that's not the same thing that we're talking about anymore, because you're adding things in other than a woman is someone who identifies as a woman.
Right. So I think that actually our method of our disagreement actually might be that we're not speaking formally enough. So there actually is
but we want to be able to
something
define
of
what
a
it
word
is.
being used.
That's literally it. We're just trying to define what it is.
Two slightly different ways.
Like descriptively.
When we say
equivocation.
Yes, yes. So when we say someone who identifies as a woman is a woman,
do you have sources for paragraph 5?
Technically mean is the woman that they identify with is the previous notion of woman that does not include themselves.
I have sources for
whereas the post definition of woman is one that does include themselves.
Right,
These
notice
are different things definitionally.
Yeah, but notice then we're not talking about the same definition, because the definition we were talking about is a woman is someone who identifies as a woman where the words woman are not equivocated. Where the words woman really do mean the same thing.
Well, in that case, I would say that I would assume maybe that was likely not the intention of the stated definition.
Okay, so before we go into like any kind of like speculation about other people, the intentions of the definition. Let's not get into that. But let's just talk about this. Like, do you agree that the definition a woman is someone who identifies as a woman where the terms woman are not equivocated? Do you agree that that is a regressive definition?
Well, certainly it's not. If
cool.
doesn't evolve with the elements of the group, then certainly it's regressive.
Okay, but that's what we're talking about. So we agree that a woman. So we agree that woman is the definition. A woman is someone who identifies as a woman, where the words woman are not equivocated. They mean the same thing in the same sense. That is a regressive definition. We agree on that.
Sure. Yes. If that is what is meant by the initial definition, then I would agree that it's recursive.
Excellent. That's exactly what we're talking about. I want to share this. I'll share this with chat. This video that actually Isaac actually coded it out. You can play it on stream if you want, Riley.
Oh, interesting.
I posted in stream chat.
Here, I'll download it.
Okay, you're gonna like this one. So.
Okay, let's see. Volume.
Okay,
so before I play it, or sorry, what are we looking at?
I want to look at this code here.
All right, ready to play? What is this?
I take issue with this code actually being compatible with the linguistics being used here.
Oh, well, if you do, then we can get you maybe in a conversation with Isaac. But the point of the code is just to illustrate something you agree with. Like, if code aside, what it's generating. Okay, good.
That's just a separate point. Is I don't think you can really map human linguistics one-to-one on code that simply. It's the whole subject is actually like even basic logic and mathematical proofs are very, very difficult. It's a whole field. It's very interesting. I would say look AGDA. Look up AGDA. It's very fascinating.
So the purpose, but we agree the purpose of the code is not to like map it's one-to-one. The purpose of the code is just to illustrate the recursivity of what we agreed is the recursive definition.
No. I mean, like,
so
you can define, like, you can have.
So
like,
basically, what this is just saying is
like
just
broad definitions exist.
You plug in how many instances
right?
of the recursivity, and it just
the point is just trying to understand. Like, we all have some idea of what a gender is.
And it
literally
generates
we're
how
just
many
trying to put
substitutions
all that
it
this
is
trying to put a word to gender, like just define
that is
that's it. That's all we're trying to do.
I don't know if Riley's playing this in her stream right now.
Sorry, I was talking to my chat. I muted myself for a second. No, I mean, like, there's someone. So like So someone in my community who I'm aware of said that logic is a human construct. We don't have to define. We don't. The universe doesn't owe us logic. Humans aren't logical. Human identities aren't logical. Neither is prejudice.
I mean, yes, I
Okay.
Literally, it's
yeah, but
it's literally Diogenes going, behold Plato's man. He was pointing out that categories are always flawed and logic doesn't always apply.
I mean, I'm an intuitionist, so I kind of agree entirely.
Well, intuitionist logic aside, the point. I mean, they would say, first of all, they can say similar things about intuitionist logic, but that aside, yes, I agree that there may be infallibilities, but if you don't think that logic is at the core of what we are doing when we achieve the greatest things that we're achieving, if you don't think that logic is one of the best tools we have, if not the best tool we have, to build virtually everything we're building on it, math, science. Logic is the heart of this, and it could be propositional logic, modal logic, it can be even fuzzy logic, even intuitionist logic. But the point here is that if you're going to just make the case to abandon logic, like, I don't know what I can say to you. I'm not sure what I can.
I would just say that I don't think the case is to abandon logic. I would say that the case is that logic alone is not enough. The human mind is not purely logical. I think that's an argument.
I mean, it's not an argument; it's a proposition. But
I think I might have cut up. I said I think the fact that the human mind is not purely logical is inarguable.
Oh no, okay. If you're gonna, absolutely, I agree with that. Sure, but again, that doesn't get around the issue that the same issue we've been talking about, that we should not be defining our terms that we're using if it results in something that's logically incoherent.
I mean, I guess it depends. Does love need to have a logical coherence?
If we're trying to define love, yes. And the fact that I understand love is a vague definition, but vague definitions can be coherent. That's another actual point I wanted to bring up in the debate. Like, at some point in the debate, one of the points that were mentioned was that
that gender is such a big construct or such a vague construct that's so nebulous that it can't possibly be defined. You can't possibly narrow it down into a narrow, coherent definition. It's impossible.
So that's not
argue that there's not any need to. Gender is ultimately simply a social construct that I think evolved over time around sexual characteristics and then evolved beyond that. For the love of,
I never. All right, you said that you agreed with me. I didn't disagree with you. Why are you? Why are you making this? You said that you agreed with me. You said that you agreed with me. And literally, I never am. I'm not saying that trans people are not who they say they are. I'm not trying to litigate. I'm not trying to litigate whether or not someone is authentically trans.
There can be
the definition I've used includes literally every trans person. Why are you saying this as if I'm trying to dictating what someone's existence is?
All the point that I'm trying to say here is that there's a difference between a definition that's a vague predicate. There's different whole views in philosophy about vagueness. For example, we don't know exactly when a puddle becomes a lake. Like, if you ask how many drops of water can you add to a puddle to make it into a lake, right? If you ask how many drops of water to add to a puddle to turn into a lake, we're not going to know exactly how many drops of water to add to a puddle and turn into a lake. We're not going to know the exact threshold. There's a vague area. There's a gray area. That's okay, because we can still realize that there are over and under determination cases where we can look and say, hey, this is clearly, there's some amount of drops of water where we will say, okay, this is clearly a puddle. And there's some amount of drops of water where we will say, okay, this is clearly
during the initial debate.
And the fact that there's a vague area in between, the fact that there is an unclear case in between the two, is fine. It doesn't mean that it's incoherent.
That
person
it just means
seems that
talking about me.
A certain
Did we
amount
ever get a
of
good
vagueness
answer
to
for
it,
the trans egg
which is not
that was
the
a great
same thing as
question from
incoherence.
Riley. I don't think was answered, so I thought
it
that
is
you were
okay to have definitions that involve vagueness.
Okay.
It is not okay, in my view, to have definitions that are just completely incoherent.
Right, and I think the incoherence is resolved if we view if we simply acknowledge that the state as that the state of what the definition is changes over time. There's a temporal
Okay.
aspect to
Okay. So
mean,
what? So
Can I comment on this really quick?
yeah, sure.
Because like the whole point of my definition, or at least the one that I was using in the debate, was like, I mean, like I talked about this with you. I mean, like both of us had, like I had expressed to you that like this is something that's important to me as well. That like the idea of what a woman in any gender changes over time, right? So I mean, like, I don't think that I'm sympathetic towards this idea. I'm sympathetic towards the idea that like we want to make sure that we include in a definition on what it means to be a gender or a woman in particular, that like, we do want to be able to capture that it's something which changes over time,
Yeah, no, 100%. Of course we do. But that doesn't change the fact that none of that interacts with the fact that a infinitely recursive definition is incoherent.
Right.
And we shouldn't be Yeah. I mean,
yes,
I agree. I agree with.
Or sorry, go ahead. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt.
Sure. So I fully agree that we would want to have a robust definition.
Yeah.
Clearly, I just want a robust definition that's actually coherent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So what about this idea? I'm not sure if I necessarily adopt this, but like I can certainly, like I think I still, I mean, like I think I can certainly, I think it certainly changes a little bit how I look at things. If we're going the wrong with this, or I mean, like obviously, this seems like a way. So maybe if we were like, let's say that we have a definition, which is a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman except for the first woman. Like would that be?
That wouldn't do it.
That
would be incoherent.
So why
the
would
reason
that
it would be incoherent is because we're
like why?
Yeah, it's incoherent because we just substitute the same thing in both instances of woman.
All right then.
I think the point is the definition is non-static. So
no, that's not. It's not the issue.
So essentially, before people could identify as a woman, then the set would be empty, i.e., it would be a meaningless term.
It's not an issue with it being static or not. It's just being an issue with the same recursivity issue. It's a logical problem.
Yes, but
so,
I mean,
can I comment
any discussion of recursivity involves a temporal element to some extent.
I don't know if that. I'm not sure about that.
Well, here, let me. I can
provide the
respond?
Map.
I'm trying to. I think I understand both perspectives.
Process onto some point of time. There's a.
Well, but
there's a mapping.
You don't have to. Yeah, no, I'm not challenging that the recursivity could be mapped onto some point in time, but I'm challenging the assertion that it has to be.
Right, and so I'm saying that if we can map it that way and we can map it the other way, then we have an isomorphism there, right? Like,
but that doesn't mean that it has to.
Like, let's say I map onto some, like, if I have n steps in my recursion and I map it onto n numbers, 1 to n, then I just view those numbers as an ordered set. There,
I don't see how this entails that it's temporal. Like, demonstrate the entailment if you think so.
The temporality is simply inherited from the ordering on the numbers.
How?
I would say 1 comes before 2 comes before 3.
How does that entail temporality?
Okay, maybe we're.
What do you mean when you're talking about temporality? Do you mean time or do you mean order?
By temporality in this sense, I mean well, actually, it depends on how complex we want to go with what time is. Okay. Because it seems like the best definition I've seen of time involves entropy, but
well, but we're getting lost in the weeds here. I mean, look, I mean, we can go down this pathway if you really want to. I really don't think you're going to be able to show the entailment. But
what do you mean? I can't show that any sequence of processes can be mapped on, like any sequence can be mapped on.
I mean, like, hold on. I mean, like,
that's just definitional of a sequence.
Wait, hold on, both of you. All right, hold on. This is my stream. I need to be able to say, all right, I've been trying to interject and be nice about it, but this is also my stream. So as someone who is listening as a lay person, right, I'm not gonna sit here and act like clearly you two are saying a lot, like clearly you two have a knowledge base on this much further beyond me, right, or at least in terms of like formal logic, right. And so my question is, okay, so maybe, because like, as I understand the criticism of the idea that like, oh, we just can't make the first person, we can't just say a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman except for the first woman, because that would still mean that like, basically you can take all that and substitute that in. Like if you go all the way back to the first woman, you could just substitute the formula in again. Like it doesn't actually like have an endpoint. So
Yes, that's true.
so my wondering is, because like in the literature when we're talking about gender, right? A lot of people talk about how like there is some discussion of basically how sometimes it's usually not always, but usually used as like a placeholder for otherwise like observable and like some other form of observable phenomenon, right? Like a lot of transphobes will make the argument that actually like gender is just like a placeholder for biological sex, and that's why they'll say that there's no difference between the two. And I don't think that that's true, but I think that there's some merits to the argument that if you go back enough far in time, it probably was used as like a form of shorthand for like one for the other, right? So maybe we want to say that like, I don't know, we could say that like a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman except for, and maybe we say, we don't have to use this terminology exactly, but we could like have a placeholder. Maybe we say like, except for the first biological female, right? Like, would that be an inference?
I'm not sure if that solves the problem. Because then we're just saying a woman is anyone. So we can just hold the first except static and just say, okay, that's always there at the end, except the first biological female, and then but we're still left with a woman is anyone who identifies as anyone who identifies.
Well, I mean like it's based on like it's based on, so I mean it goes back to the idea from earlier, right? Like basically like it's the other person. So like you have someone who has like the qualities we talked about, uterus, breastises, whatever. Again, like I don't know, I take issues with like using terms of like biological sex, but you know, like someone who has these qualities, right? Like someone who has these physical attributes, you know, someone else, another person, a second or a third party looks at that person and starts like ascribing some shorthand mental, like some mental shorthands to that person for basically like based on originally those qualities, those physical qualities, and start assuming other things onto that person that aren't necessarily based on those physical qualities. Like, for example, maybe there's like you take like a caveman or whatever, you go back way back in time, and you take like what would eventually, like what we would look at today and be like a guy, right? This person we would look at this person, we look at this person and think like, I'm trying to think. All right, we might look at this person and think like of her today as like a mother, right? And she looks at, we might, sorry, I have to like I'm constructing this hypothetical for the first time in my head.
Well, can I just say like, no matter, here's the ultimate point. So I just want to say about the whole thing about except for the first one. I'm not actually convinced. I have to fully go through, but I'm not actually convinced that actually escapes the infinite recursivity.
Okay.
It's something to be really just suspect of when you're using the same non-equivocated word in the definition you're trying to define. So ultimately, like, here's the thing, Riley. If you're gonna use other properties, whether they're physical characteristics, whether they're the way people interact with society, whether they're the way society interacts with them, whether they're the internal processes that are going on in their head, whether they're the internal processes that are happening over time, whether we're talking about how society interacts with people over time, that's all fine. You can have some sort of conglomeration of all of those things that play into and sort of have a vague definition, which is going to be a vague definition in my view, in my opinion anyway. But all of that's fine, and that's not going to result in infinite recursivity. But you'll notice that it's a completely different definition than what we were talking about.
No, I agree. So I mean, I'm not necessarily. I have to think. Like, I agree. Like, I have to think more on this kind of definition myself. The way that I'm immediately thinking of being able to use it is that, like, if people want to be able to argue that, like, what does it mean to be a woman? Oh, well, and they assert that, like, what it means to be a woman is identifying as a woman, right? Like, and they feel very strongly about that position. Like before, literally the entire, like, I don't know, you watch the debate, literally the entirety of the debate kind of like started from me, like, just hearing someone else make an argument that I saw a problem with, and I was just trying to make like a friendly recommendation, right? So I might recommend to other people who don't want to use my definition that maybe that's like an alternative that could be like suitable for them. Because like I still don't want to, like, I still think that there's enough of like other literature for me to be able to like that I don't want to like necessarily just say that self-identity is where it's at. But I mean, like for other people who are like, who feel very strongly about using this definition, like as long as it doesn't, as long as it's able to avoid this issue, then essentially like in that kind of position, I would be like, oh, well, just be aware that like this is a problem. So make sure that like in situations where someone is like super knowledgeable about formal logic, that you're just able to be like, hey, just be aware this is a problem. So if you ever get into a debate, be aware that you may have to go down like, okay, so when I say anyone who identifies as a woman is a woman, actually, I need to be able to like that does exclude naturally the first person that the definition was based off of originally, right?
No, because if are we talking about woman is someone who identifies as a woman and isn't the first biological female, or someone like that, or something, a definition like that? Is that the definition we're working with? Yeah, that's the same thing. You can just sub for woman, and there's no additional.
No. But the first person we're not saying is a woman. Like it's someone who has like certain physical qualities.
No,
I know.
Yeah. Woman is someone who identifies as a woman and isn't the first biological female. I'm not saying woman at the end. I'm saying biological female.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure that doesn't work.
But why? But hold on.
You could just sub. Yeah, sure.
But why?
Because you could just sub for women. Yeah, just continue subbing for women.
Right, but here's the issue: you can't sub for woman backwards like that because woman changes as new elements are added.
No, but that's just going back to the temporal thing we discussed earlier. So the problem with, with the definition.
It's
I'm not talking. Yeah, but I'm not. So someone who identifies as a woman and isn't the first biological female. That definition logically is going to lead to an infinite recursivity.
Okay, why?
Yeah, sure. No, yeah. So if you sub for woman, you'll just get woman equals someone who identifies as a. So it's a conjunction between something. Someone who identifies as a parentheses, someone who identifies as a woman and isn't the first biological female, end parentheses, and isn't the first biological female. That's what you get when you sub for woman. And you can just keep on doing this.
Okay.
Right.
It doesn't work.
I think the issue is...
Here, I'll write it out into your stream chat.
Okay.
Here.
So I'll type a thing as well, because I think this is... it might be illustrative.
This was actually mentioned to me. So this is actually Isaac actually wrote it out for me. I'm just mentioning it here, and he actually wrote it out while I'm explaining it.
Okay. Someone who identifies
as a woman. Notice how you can just do the same substitution thing.
Right. So I understand the substitution. I'm saying you're substituting different sets. So you're substituting like.
No, we're not.
Let me define it this way. So if X is the set of women, then someone else identifies as a woman, then X prime is X union that person.
No, just to be clear,
X prime becomes the new set of women.
Okay,
so
I'm sorry
to substitute X prime for X.
Yeah, but it's not. But just to be clear, we're already, and this is the point we already discussed earlier. We're being very clear that we're talking about non-equivocated terminology when we're talking about the word woman. We're using a definition that doesn't equivocate on the words.
Why?
Right. So. Why? Because if you're going to equivocate on the same word, then, well, there's a number of reasons why. So equivocation is, reason number one, equivocation is a logical fallacy, an informal one. But I'm not certain I follow, like equivalences are used all the time in mathematics, so I'm not certain I agree. Isomorphisms are generally, in fact, viewed as a better form of what it means to be equals. If you actually look into things like category theory, the whole idea of pure equivalence, even at a mathematical level, is more vague than pure equals. This isn't interacting. Yeah, but this just isn't interacting with anything I'm saying. So again, what we're saying is we're talking about a definition that doesn't equivocate on the word woman. Now, if we define women as someone who identifies... Well, just 1 second, please. Look,
I apologize. I was cutting in there. I'm sorry.
All I'm saying is that if we are... So just so we be clear, we're using the same terminology when we're using the word woman. We're not equivocating. If we define a woman as someone who identifies as woman and isn't the first biological female, that also leads to an infinite regress. The reason it leads to infinite regress is you substitute the same thing. You're not substituting X prime in for X, it's X for X. And you can continue doing that ad infinitum. There's no actual meaning that's being added there. there
Right.
is.
So
Yeah,
I,
it
I,
doesn't
I
tell
think
you
I,
what
I
gender.
think I understand. I think I see. The only thing I would say is that this requires the substitution requires a static definition.
What do you mean by that?
Um, so if we're gonna when we substitute woman for woman, that requires that the definition of woman be the same in both instances. But if it's
Right,
changing, it's
not equivocating.
non-static.
Right. Okay, but that's fine. But then if it's okay, so think I see the confusion here. So yeah, so if you're talking about the definition of woman changing over time, in terms of like a sociological context in society, that would just be baked into the cake of the woman in both terms, both before and after the identifier. So if we say a woman is someone who identifies as a woman, we're using the word woman indexed to either a given time frame or all across the entire time frame, as long as it's used in the same sense and can capture things temporally over the same amount of time or all time or whatever you're talking about. The key here is that in the definition, the term is used equivalently, that it's identical, that it means the same thing in the same sense. If you're talking about that, it leads to an infinite regress, unequivocally.
Right. And yes, and this is not what I'm talking about specifically.
But that's what we're talking about.
So
Oh, well, then
how would,
I
how would we
suppose that
change?
I will exit stage left. I suppose
Wait.
I have nothing to add then.
Wait, hold on. So how would we change the definition? Because I mean, like it makes sense. So how do we change the definition so that it incorporates this idea of temporality? Like, what would we write out?
I just want to clear. But okay, so we'll get so to be completely clear, because I just want to, like, I think a lot of time has been taken up on this. So I just want a clear concession that, based on the definition we came to discuss, that was being discussed, that this definition is recursive. It is infinitely recursive. It is logically incoherent, and we ought to do something to not use that definition. Like, do we agree on that?
I agree on that insofar as we use a very uncharitable interpretation of what is meant by it. But
all right. I don't. Okay, so we're gonna. I don't think we'll ever agree. Yeah.
No. Listen, I'm inclined to agree. Like, it does sound like, and I'm here. I'm ascribing, like, I like everything that you're saying is making sense, but like it sounds like naturally you're including other things in the definition.
Oh, absolutely, yes. The two instances of women are not the same. I concede on that.
Yeah,
100%,
so it's not just
that has to be true.
Yeah, so it's not just identifying a woman as someone who identifies as a woman. It's like also adding in that qualifier.
Right, it's adding in the societal context in addition. Yes.
Okay, so I mean, like, if you want, like, it would be really helpful if you could like write that out and email me.
Yeah, sure. I'll try and write something up.
Yeah, just so I can be able, because I mean, like, this does.
Sources on it.
Yeah, because like I'm not sure if I want to adopt this definition, just because like it has at least a little bit of conflict with the literature, but it avoids the problem that I was talking about with the Imama. At least insofar as it avoids the problem that Avi and I that we're sort of talking about. And so I would feel
by equivocating by putting the same terms and just equivocating them, that's going to lead into a whole bunch of issues.
Wait, hold on. Hold on, Avi. I thought that you said that like there's a way to be able to basically write out what we're talking about that avoids an infinite regress.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that presented yet. That's all.
Okay, so all right, so maybe.
I mean, I've heard ideas of how to present that, but like here's the other thing. Like and I only say this because I'm on a 38% battery. But what I wanted to do, my goal for this conversation, and if you want to have another like discussion on like, okay, well, what definition is really the best definition? Like, we want a definition. I just want the purpose of this conversation is just to clear up at least for my
yeah.
To clear up.
So no, that makes sense.
Well, certainly you can't use self-referential definitions. I mean, nobody.
Right. But that's exactly. That's the whole thing that's the whole problem. The problem is, like, I hear self-referential definitions like really used quite frequently, and I think we should change that.
Then I think I have misunderstood the entirety of what we've been talking about. I apologize. Then I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. All right, I appreciate that.
Yeah. But seriously, can you send me that email? No, I'd really like to, like, this is very informative. And also I appreciate that, like, this is actually responsive to the concern that is, like, kind of the whole point of all of this. So I'd like to continue talking about this if you are willing to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The purpose of what I wanted to come on this call is just to clear out the goals here, just
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
make sure everyone completely clear about, there may be a journey and there may be a whole process to refine the definition to avoid any obvious problems that we don't want, and at the same time to capture what we mean when we talk about gender. And that's fine, and that's going to be that's quite a task, and people have been at work at this task and for quite some time. But the purpose of this conversation, from my perspective, is just to clarify first of all, to discuss the issues, the particulars of the debate, but also to clarify what the goals actually are. So
Yeah.
first and foremost,
Oh,
you
hold on.
want
So,
a-
yeah, boy. So, can I excuse you from the call since now we're just
Oh
moving.
yes, absolutely. I have to go rescue my slipper from my dog anyway before it's completely ruined.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you for letting me converse.
Yeah.
Both of you have a good day.
You too.
Take care. Okay, so the first and foremost goal is you want a definition that's not going to be incoherent. That's the purpose of a definition, is to provide meaning to the term you're trying to define. You want it to not result in any internal contradiction. You want it to not result in an infinite regress. You want it to not, and if it does result in a recursivity, you want it to at least have some sort of terminator in a way that doesn't that actually has a terminator.
Yeah.
But that's even tough to do. That you really don't want to have a regress.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, in terms of where we left off prior,
Yeah, sorry, that was
tautologies. Yeah.
Sorry, but I mean, like, that was a
It's
useful.
okay.
I thought that was a
Yeah.
useful detour personally. I don't know if that's what your impression was. That was my impression.
No, if it provided that you and the community came out understanding why it's important to not use infinitely regressive definitions, then I'm happy I had that conversation.
Yeah. Well, I think that's useful. Destiny's in the waiting room. Yeah, I know. I told Destiny. All right, so Destiny said he'd like to chat again. I just told him, all right, so I'm gonna finish my conversation with you. I'm not gonna do the thing. I'm sorry, like, learn my lesson. But I'll chat with Destiny after. So.
Listen. I'm happy to chat with Destiny too. Let's just finish up the. I mean, unless you want to bring it.
No. Let's finish what we're talking about, because Destiny we'll talk about naturally probably something different, like related to the.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So all right, so let's pick up. So, God, did we leave off at tautology? I think we left off at tautology.
Yeah, tautology.
Okay.
We did.
So can you explain what exactly a tautology is?
Sure. So when we talk about tautologies, and this relates to the debate for those watching or listening, is because one thing that was mentioned is that saying a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman is valid because it's a tautology.
Mm-hmm.
And that's wrong on two accounts. So the first account is that it's not actually a tautology. That's not what a tautology means. The second account is it's actually not valid, even if it was a tautology, because tautologies, in logic, tautologies are just true. They're not valid. Validity is a property of arguments. But to the first point, what a tautology is a statement that is true in virtue of its logical form. So, for example, if I say, if I am a human, then I am a human. Or if I am a cat, then I am a cat.
I mean, myself, Vivian,
that
this
would
is
be
what,
an example of a tautology.
That's what the Imam
The
was
reason
saying,
it's an example of a tautology is because it takes the form if P, then P. That would be one example of a tautology, a tautological form. And the reason it's a tautology is because it doesn't matter what you substitute the variables for. It's always true in virtue of its logical form, because no matter what I am, I could be anything. I am still going to, it's the statement, if I am a human, then I am human, is still going to be true. Another example would be, I either have all green hair or I do not have all green hair, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I make the statement, either all of my hair is green or all of my hair is not green. Now you'll notice, no matter what color my hair is,
like, that statement will always be true.
The statement will always be true. It doesn't matter. The content of my hair is irrelevant to it. In fact, the content of, so basically that it takes the form of either P or exclusive or not P. You'll notice that P exclusive or not P is always going to be true, because you can fill in anything for P. And P exclusive or not P will always be true. Either I am a human or I am not a human. Either I am a cat or I am not a cat. Like, no matter what I am, the statement, either I am a cat or I am not a cat, will always be true. And the reason it's true has nothing to do with any content. It's just true, just almost, it's true tautologically. It's true because of the logical form that the statement takes.
Right. So basically, if I'm understanding correctly, like a tautology is like a legal format where literally by virtue of its description, like you could put anything in there, and if you use that logical form, it's just like essentially you were describing all of the possible outcomes for that variable with the statement. Like you were describing everything that it could possibly include.
So
that's not like the right
yes,
wording, but I mean, I think I can conceptually have a hold of it. I'm just having trouble like putting words to it.
Right. So the point, the point here is that this is so. Let me just say, like, there's a colloquial tautology. What that meaning is just basically saying the same thing in different words, like just to say the same thing. But really, in logic, what a tautology is just a statement that's true, and the only reason it's true, the reason it's true, is because of the logical form it's put in. It's not true because of any content that any of the propositional variables take. It's not true because of any. So, like for the example. Either I have all green hair or I do not have all green hair. That statement will be true no matter what. We can rearrange all the molecules in the universe, and that statement will always be true. Because at least on propositional logic. And the only reason it's true is because if you draw out the truth tables, and we don't have to get into truth tables today. I don't know if I have enough battery for that, but you'll notice that it wouldn't be possible, if anyone does draw out the truth tables, it wouldn't be possible for that statement to ever be false, no matter what the truth or falsity of the propositions are. You can substitute the content of those propositional variables in for anything, and the statement is always true. Now you'll notice how that's completely not the case when you're talking about a recursive definition. The recursive definition, it's not even first of all, it's a definition. The definitions aren't, they're not propositional. But the point is that it's not clear how that definition takes the logical form in which it's always true in virtue of its form.
Hold on. Wait.
Yeah,
Quick
sure.
pause. Someone in my chat. Well, I mean, like Hypno, I know. Oh, wow, that was a lot. Classical. Hold on. Spaz. Oh my God, you just put a massive wall of text. Please. People, please don't wall of text me. I mean, like, I'll pin it. But anyway, Hypno is someone who I know, who I'm friends with, who is saying everything besides physics breaks down if you stare at it hard enough because human perception is flawed and some physics break down too. The universe doesn't owe us logic. No, the universe simply exists. I mean, like... Hypno, you're more than welcome to join the call because, I mean, like, I disagree, but I'm also not going to sit here and act like I'm, like, a really good authority to be able to speak. But someone who is a much better authority than me probably can help or talk. But, I mean, like, I disagree with the idea that, like, we just should, like, we shouldn't define terms, that we should, like, literally, this is the whole point of being able to, for example, like, debate ideas. Like, if we just accept that nothing, like, the universe doesn't owe us reason, things don't have to be consistent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then literally every conversation just becomes, well, this doesn't matter because the universe doesn't owe us reason, right? Oh, well, we just don't care about anything because the universe doesn't owe us reason. Maybe that's what you want for gender, but but we cannot extend that logically to, like, any other discussion, James, RGR, could you try asking about this formalization? Okay, hold on. I'm gonna hold on to that.
Sure.
But like,
I'm gonna share you something. Actually, maybe I will share with you maybe on your own time. I'll post it into Stream Chat as well.
Okay.
This is a truth table generator in propositional logic. So I'll post that in Stream Chat. And then you could enter in certain things. Like we can enter in like the most. Let me know when you have that on stream. We can enter in the most like basic tautology, just to give you an example of what it is.
Okay, I'm
right?
pulling one up. All right, truth table generator.
Okay, so let's put in the, and don't type it in the sentence. We're going to put it into variables. So let's say if I say if I am a human, then I am a human. So that would be P implies P. The way to write that out is to write P and then make an arrow. So make a dash and then a and bracket as an arrow, and then just write P and make sure they both have the same capitalization. So I can just post into Stream Chat what it will be. So P implies P. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and notice how in the truth table, like it's always true. There's no possible instance where where that statement can be false. Do you see how that came out?
Gotcha. Yeah. So this is describing a tautology. So basically, if you are, then you are. So it's literally never able to be. Now you see, like, someone may look at that, because I want to be clear, like someone may look at that and be like, oh, well, that's actually a good thing because you never want to invalidate trans people. You never want to invalidate trans identity. So having a, people would call it a definition, having something which is always true is actually a good thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, first of all, the first point to make is that that's different. That's fundamentally different from the definition that was offered, which is not actually a tautology. It doesn't seem to be at all. But the point is that even with tautologies, they can be uninformative. If you ask a question and they just answer with the same, if they say, okay, well, why are you a human? And they say, I'm a human because I'm a human, and they just keep giving you this tautological answer. That lacks information. It lacks the information you're trying to provide. And it's not always, so I don't want people to get into the habit of just using tautology, because it's actually not what in many cases, it's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to give non-tautological answers to things. So a couple of things. So number one, that definition was not a tautology. Number two, giving tautological answers is not, in many cases, it's not what we're trying to do. And number three, tautologies aren't valid. They're just true. They're true by the form they take. Okay. Tautologies can be more complex, but we don't have to get into that.
Right, anyway, right. Well, I mean, like, the thing is, because that like that was the thing that was brought up to me. But first things first. So like, so let's say that we were trying to construct. All right, I want to just like be clear about this. So let's say that we were trying to construct. Like, if Demon Mama didn't use, like defining woman as a tautology, then what would be an equivalent for saying, like, of using a tautology as saying that you're a woman? Would it be like, if I am a woman, then I am a woman?
Yeah, that would be the tautology. If I am a woman, then I am a woman. That would be a tautology.
Okay.
Yeah, and it would be. You notice how that, like, first of all, it's not a definition. It's a tautological statement. But notice how no matter what you are, no matter what anyone is, the statement "if I am a woman, then I am a woman" is always true.
Right. Well, I mean, like, some people, and again, like, some people look at that as a benefit, because it's like, oh, well, we never want to invalidate any trans people, because, like, all right, here's probably the other thing that people are worried about, and I do very careful with how I have defined what it means to be trans, at least based on the literature, based on whatever, like, what people are worried about, it seems, most fundamentally, is that we do not end up excluding anyone who identifies as trans.
Absolutely.
Like, basically, like, people want to avoid the situation where you end up, in the words of, I think it was my admin earlier, like, litigating to someone what their identity is, right? You don't, like, people don't want to feel like their identity is tied to some inherent rigid criteria that if they do not, or if they fail to meet, then that invalidates who they are, or their self-perception of who they are.
Completely understandable.
Right. And so, like, the idea of using a tautological statement, like, regardless of whether or not Demon Mama used that correctly, it seems like, I'm not sure if
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, like, regardless.
Let me just respond like this. So you'll notice that the problem is, so I agree, it's always true, but the problem is it doesn't actually provide information about whether an individual actually is in the category of woman, because no matter what that individual is, the statement is always true. The statement, if someone is a woman, then they are a woman. But notice how that doesn't give you any information about who any women are if they are a woman. That doesn't give you. It just says if a woman is a woman, a woman is a woman. Like that's all it is.
Yeah. I'm of the impression that there's a lot of people who probably don't care. I probably no, and I'm saying that like I do care. Like I care about being able to like have words that like can give us some kind of meaning, so we can be able to elaborate on them and explore them more conceptually, which sounds like it's basically impossible to be able to do with a tautology. But
right.
I know, but like I can recognize that there are probably a lot of people who can look at the idea of like, oh, well, you know, tautology, downside, like it's always true, so it's very hard to be able to actually explore like inferences or like different applications of this concept, but also never invalidate trans people. Like some people might look at that as like essentially like an even trade-off.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you're going to say that I'm defining, well, it's not even a definition. It's not even, if you're just going to reduce people who advocate for trans rights, and if you're going to just reduce them to having things that are just incoherent or non-meaning, things that don't provide any meaning, then yeah, someone may not be able to say that they've said something false, but they're not going to be able to answer questions in any meaningful way. They're not going to be able to answer, address critiques in any meaningful way.
We talked about that earlier.
They're just going to resort to either regressive definitions or uninformative tautologies. I think there's a better solution. What that is a different discussion, but the better solution is to actually provide meaningful answers and to provide non-infinitely regressive definitions in such a way that doesn't exclude people in that way. And I don't think that's something that can't be done.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, I mean, like, no, I agree with your position. I'm just expressing right now that like this is essentially probably going to be the position. So even if she didn't use tautology correctly, that people might look at this, like I am a woman, therefore I am a woman, like that, like using womanhood or any gender as tautology, and basically be like, yeah, you know, like that's an even trade-off, you know, like I may not want, like I legitimately have no further interest in understanding what like the superseding interest in my categorization of gender. The superseding interest is not invalidating other people over being able to, like it would be like essentially a limitation on being able to explore what the concepts mean, right? Like it essentially says if you can't. I mean, like this is also reflective of my experience literally throughout the past 48 hours. Is that like it essentially means you cannot explore what the concept means beyond just you are who you say you are.
Yeah, if the solution to this fear is just to divorce yourself from either logical coherence or providing meaning to any the discussion. That is one way to divorce yourself from any fears of ending up where you don't want to be. I agree. It's also a double-edged sword. If you're going to divorce yourself that way, you're not going to have any growth. You're not going to gain any future understanding of what these terms mean. You're not going to gain any future progress, if there is any progress to be made at all in this field. You're just excluding yourself from the conversation as far as any meaning is concerned. And so I mean, if someone wants to do that, they can, but that's not my goal. And I assume it's not your goal either.
No, it's not. I mean, like, essentially, because when you run into that, I mean, like, essentially, like, the entirety of the research I do, like, all the work that we've done on the channel, like, it all immediately becomes meaningless, right? Because actually, we don't have to know why someone is a woman. We don't need to know, like, how trans women interact with the world that's unique to them. And what kind of unique experiences they face as a consequence of being trans women, or like trans men, or non-binary people, or like anyone, like gender various people, or gender minority people, right? Like it essentially means that we cannot explore any of those issues because we have not agreed on what the term means to begin with. At least that's my understanding. And I mean, like,
and I just think that that's not really the productive way to go.
No,
I'm gonna quickly grab my.
I guess that's fine. Like, I'm not gonna tell people not to do that, but like, as far as me as like a public figure, it seems like the more responsible thing, if what I am trying to do, especially consistent with like the whole kind of theme of my channel and my content, is to provide like, I mean, literally, it's evidence-based arguments for advocating and for defending and advocating civil rights, right? Like, if I want to do that, then necessarily I have to be able to look at the evidence about what it means to be, well, I mean, like, you know, various issues, but as they relate to be trans, like, as they relate to, like, trans issues, what it means to be trans, right? What it means to be agender. Like, I need to be able to look at the evidence and be able to draw meaningful inferences and conclusions based off of it. So it seems necessary for me to define it and to ascribe other people, like, if other people are basing their positions off of mine, to tell them to also, you know, try to define what it means. And then if people don't want to, then fine. But as far as like me as a public figure who other people base their arguments on, that's probably what I feel is most ethical.
In other words, you're gonna actually have to engage in the conversation and have meaning into the things that you're actually saying.
Yeah.
You're not gonna, I mean, crazy how that's such a hard, like, that's where we've come to, where we actually have to make a case to do this. But yeah, I mean, anyway, listen, I got to grab a charger for my computer, and I see Destiny's been waiting, so I'm happy to talk to Destiny if he has any interest. If he doesn't have any interest in talking to me, then I can happily leave. But,
I mean, like, I don't want to, like, I don't know, with content creators, I'm fine bringing in multiple people for like people who are viewing, because like I don't want to just like spend, you know, 30 minutes on one person when there's like 5 or 10 people waiting for me. But I probably also want to talk to, oh, hold on, like Emmett, Mixed Vivian Wolf wants to talk to me. Hold on, I'm confused. Maybe I missed something. Everyone has different definition of womanhood depending on various social individual ideological frameworks. I guess I should watch the debate with Demon Mama. All right, watch that. I'm not going to bring you in right now. In order to be able to have this conversation, you need context. If you're not coming, like, I love you, thank you. But you need, clearly this requires context, and I cannot just like spend all the time educating on the context. So like, go watch a video. It'll tear your soul out of your body, as it has for me. Hooray. And I will bring you in later. But yeah, thanks, Avi. No, I really appreciate being. Oh wait, hold on. Actually, I do have one more question.
Sure. What's up?
Okay. Dean Mama also brought up the idea of like, you can't. So basically, when I was trying to explore the idea of an infinite regress, right? And basically, like, I am who I am because I say that I am, and the problems with that. I brought up examples. Like the first was the attack helicopter bit, and that's like basically the reason why I think people use that logically. And she did not agree with me because she said that it was linguistically an object and therefore it did not qualify. And so at that point I was like, okay, I don't exactly know what you're saying there, but I'm just going to bite the bullet. And I was like, okay, so let's talk about something else. Let's talk about Jesus Christ. Someone self-identifies as Jesus motherfucking Christ of Nazareth. All right. Someone self-identifies as Jesus motherfucking Christ of Nazareth. And they, well, why is my health so low? What? Or tame takeaway broth. For some reason, my health, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my game. So let's say that someone self-identifies as Jesus motherfucking Christ of Nazareth. And then, I was like, all right, so what about this person? Like, that's a person, it's not an object. She was like, no, that's an object too. And I was very confused. So like,
it almost sounds like anytime there's a counterexample, one doesn't want to bite the bullet on it, they can label it an object and not answer the question.
Yeah, that's essentially how it came across. Like literally, I tried like showing her like the problems with you can't just label anything as what you self-identify, and she was essentially like, oh no, well all the examples that you listed, even the ones where they are people. And she would essentially make like an argument that no, they're an object insofar as we can define them historically. What if
I identify as you?
Yeah.
If I identify as you, am I you? Are you an object now?
I guess I would be an object. Well, no, in that case, yeah, in that case, I would probably be an object because.
But
like,
wait a minute, then can you wait?
She said that
the
president. No, because she said that the president. I can't remember. She said that the president was an object, but she said that there were like objective criteria that we could measure for whether or not you were the president. And so. And so that wouldn't qualify either. Like, if you self-identify as the president, she was like, no, well, we could disprove that logically. Which...
Yeah, look, there needs... If she's going to... First of all, it's not clear why the self-identification... If you want to say self-identification is a sufficient criteria to be anything, then it's not clear why being an object is even a problem. If you self-identify something that is an object, you didn't have an exclusion criteria for objects that being self-identified. And if you want to introduce that, there needs to be some sort of adjudication, what method of adjudicating between objects and non-objects. Like, and once you do that, guess what? You're setting limits on what people can identify as, which seems to be this thing that it's trying to be avoided, and that the person you were debating is trying to avoid in the first place.
Yeah, no, I brought that up, but she didn't really engage with that. But yeah, so I was trying to figure like what is so like what is she trying to say as an object? Like, does that have any meaning? Does that have any weight? Like what is that? Because like right now to me, all that it was like essentially was the way that you described it was just like anytime I brought up a counterexample to be able to like refute the logic that she was putting forward, she would just define as an object and hand wave it away.
Yeah. So the steps to take with that is to say, okay, look. First of all, by the criteria you've given, it's not clear why being an object is even a problem. If you want to say it's a problem, if you want to say you cannot identify as things that are objects, then give an adjudication criteria for objects versus non-objects.
I think there's some deeper context. That's right.
And if that's the case, it seems like you're putting a restriction on what individuals can identify on. Now that's all fine. The main problem here, it's not even the main problem. I mean, that's kind of like one of the reductios or bullet biters. But one of the main problem here is just that the definition is just incoherent. That's the bigger problem here.
Yeah. Well, she didn't accept, like I had tried showing her that throughout the night, and at the end of it, like even at the, like I had basically gotten her to the point, like after 2 hours, I had gotten her to the point of essentially acknowledging that you can't just self-ID, because the example that I used was like of the egg trans person, right? The trans person who has like these internal mental processes that would naturally lead them eventually, if under the right circumstances, to like discover their transness, but did not for whatever reason know that, and so like self-identified with something else up until that point, right? And I had gotten her to acknowledge that like if that person identified as something contrary to what they would later find themselves out to be, or actually I can't remember exactly what she said, but I mean like clearly that person, I think that I got her to say that it was wrong. I can't remember exactly. Joe Lewis. Oh, yeah, I see you in the chat.
I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean like
I mean, yeah, they're entailments. So these, but I want you to be recognize that these are a different type of argument.
Okay.
So these arguments are like reductios. These are like showing, okay, well, if you believe this, then this is what follows from your view. It follows like these are all these things that follow. Like if someone is trans and it's clearly, if they clearly are trans, if they clearly have all these mental processes that that lead them to eventually identify as someone who is something different than what they were assigned at birth, then up until that point, they actually were what they were assigned at birth. And they're like, wait a minute, no, a second before I identified, those processes brought me to the point of identification. You're going to say I really was what I was assigned at birth before then? Like that clearly doesn't capture what we mean by gender. Notice now they might bite the bullet on that. They might bite, you know what? No, until the mental processes were strong enough to bring you to the point of identification, you really were what you were assigned at birth.
She kind of did for a while, or at least like, she basically said, it was a slightly different, hypothetical earlier in the conversation. So earlier in the conversation, it was essentially like, I think I just asked, like, if you have someone who knows that they're not trans, but they say that they are, then, or like if someone who knows that they are, like believes internally that they are a man, but says that they are a woman, then Demon Mama said that person would be, a woman. And then conversely, I switched around and was like, okay, so what if you have someone who's like trans, knows that they are trans, internally believes themselves to be trans, and then, but they outwardly, like they're in the closet, so they identify to the world that they are a man. Then, like, I'm trying to remember exactly how she was trying to like, I think
there's some like conflation between lying in there as well. Like they don't have to lie. They can really believe it. They can really believe that they're you know.
Yeah. No, I mean like that's the reason. I think that's the reason why like the egg part came up is because like if I said like I think that what happened was that the hypothetical came up where it's like if you have the trans person who believes themselves internally to be trans, but they're in the closet, so they represent to the world. They actually say to like when people ask them when they're walking down the street or whatever, they're like, "Hey, are you a guy or a gal or some other gender?" And that person's like, "Oh, I'm a guy," even though internally they know themselves to be trans. Like I believe that Demon Mama, the way she responded was to say, no, well, they would be lying, or they would be
that needed to be shut down real quick because that does not follow. Like, they don't have to be lying. They could really believe that they are what they are assigned at birth, even though they have these overriding tendencies that go in the other direction, and eventually realize that it comes to the point where they identify otherwise.
Right.
She has to bite the bullet on that case too.
Right, but we're talking about like internal versus external self-identification, right? Like what
Either
you say to the world versus what you believe internally, right? I think that there's
Sure,
a
but
meaningful.
But notice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but notice, here's the point, though. The point is that even if we're talking internally, the point is that lying is not entailed. She has to bite the bullet on someone who is telling the truth, or at least not telling the truth. Sorry, someone who is not lying, because you can say something that's wrong. You can say something that's false and not lie. You can believe what you're saying.
Oh yeah.
You can be talking about someone who has these tendencies. The tendencies or mental processes just haven't reached the point where they have gotten one to the point of identification to something other, and she would have to say, by her definition, that until you get to the point where those mental processes have gotten you to identify, then you are actually what you were assigned at birth.
Yeah, but
and
you see, like she didn't.
She
did absolutely everything that she could to avoid
to dodge that point.
Yeah, exactly, because that's like the thing. I mean, like exactly what we're talking about. Like that's the thing that kind of shuts down the argument, right?
Yeah. But notice how that's a different type. So that's a type of argument that's like a reductio. That's a bullet biter. The stronger point is actually that it's just logically incoherent.
Well, right, anyway, but she didn't buy that, so I had to go to like that's where I started. You know, obviously I started there, but she didn't. She was just like, no, that doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, my battery is at 6%.
Okay, yeah. No, thank you so much. All right, I appreciate it. This has been super informative and very productive, I felt. So thank you. You've been a shining light in this hell that's been 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever.
Listen, thank you, and I'm actually really proud of you for not being ideological.
Well, thank you.
I'm proud of the way you handled yourself, actually. I really am.
Considering most people are saying the complete opposite, and I actually have lost a lot of friends over this, apparently, which I'm probably going to cry about later. I'm just pretty decent about not normally doing that. Yesterday, I had a little slip-up. Sorry about that, but I do appreciate the compliment.
No, yeah, sir. Your behavior has... I've gained a lot of respect for you because of this. I want you to know that.
Well, thank you. All right, I'll talk to you later.
All right, cool. Take care.